Hi guys, welcome back to Airam's Vegan Vida. So today I have a recipe for you guys that is great for the holidays and for this winter season coming right up. I'm making some vegan tamales. I have previously made this recipe. I tested out for the first time last year, and this year I wanted to film it for you guys, so I did. I made pork tamales, which was made out of jackfruit. And then I also made some cheese and jalapeno tamales, which is like the queso con rajas. That, growing up, those were my favorite, but I also made like the pork ones because those are more traditional. So yeah, I hope you guys really enjoy this recipe. It's really easy and actually pretty cheap. Jackfruit costs $1.50 to $2 a can. I used in total 3 cans to make around like 30 tamales. I hope you really enjoy it. Thank you and happy holidays. Okay you guys, so to begin on the guajillo sauce, I'm using 35 guajillos that I'm going to be de-seeding. I simply open them up to make sure I get all those little seeds out. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to be putting them into a pot for 10 to 15 minutes until the guajillos are softened so they can blend easily and smoothly. And the reason why I'm using 35 guajillos is because I'm actually going to be making 40 ounces of this sauce that I will be using for multiple recipes. But feel free to cut the portion in half or even in 1/4 depending on the amount you desire to make. Now that the guajillos are softened up, I'm carefully going to be adding every single one into the blender. Alongside the guajillos, I'm adding 3 different spices, starting off with 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1.5 tablespoon of oregano, and 1.5 tablespoon of bay leaves, or you can opt that out for 3 whole bay leaves. Also going into the blender, I'm adding 15 peeled raw garlic cloves. Alongside that, 1 whole cup of white vinegar. Okay, so now I'm setting my blender to puree for 1 minute. Depending on how high speed your blender is, you might need to blend this more or less. Okay, so after that minute is up, I'm adding 1 cup of Guajillo water, the water that the guajillos were cooked in order to dilute it and thin it out just a bit. After adding that Guajillo water, I continue to blend the Guajillo sauce for 2 more minutes to get it as smooth as my blender could possibly get it. And there you have it, 40 ounces of homemade Guajillo sauce. Like I said, if you want to use less and you only want to use what's necessary for this recipe, completely cut this in half, cut it in 1/4, do as you please. But I promise you that this Guajillo sauce is very useful in the kitchen. You can add it to tons of things. Okay you guys, so now moving on to the jackfruit. As you can see, the jackfruit is in a pot with hot water. The reason why that is because I've been using this new method that I use in my enchilada video. So what I do is cook the jackfruit for 1.5 to 2 hours on medium to high heat, because that helps it take out that briny taste that it comes since it's in brine. And it is also a less wasteful method. The reason why that is because I used to de-seed the jackfruit and take out the hard parts in order to cook it easier. But when you do this cooking method, it really softens up the entire jackfruit and it allows you to use all of it and shred it easier. Now that I gave you guys a little recap, you can see how I'm shredding my jackfruit. It is pretty self-explanatory. Shred it as if it were meat. Now that the jackfruit is all shredded, I'm moving it to one side so I can squeeze out any remaining liquid that it might have. The reason why that is because you want the jackfruit to be as dry as possible so that it can grab onto any flavor you might add to it. For example, the guajillo sauce. And there you have it, all dried and ready to use. This jackfruit method is a bit time consuming, but I promise it is 100% worth it and makes the jackfruit work and taste a lot better. Okay, so now quickly transfer the jackfruit onto a pan on medium heat so we could get the cooking process started. So I'm adding 1/2 cup of vegetable broth, and today I'm using the Better Than Bouillon paste to make the broth because it is certified vegan and easy to find, but you can use any vegetable broth that you have at home. So I'm mixing that around, letting it all soak in. Also adding 3/4 cup of diced onion for some added flavor. I'm gonna quickly mix it around, let that vegetable broth soak in a little longer, and then I'm gonna gradually add 1 cup of guajillo sauce, starting off with a little splash, and I'm gonna thoroughly mix that as much as I can, letting it cook off quite a bit. This meat will take you around 30 minutes. It does take some love and care. So now I'm adding 3/4 cup of vegetable broth because for this jackfruit filling, you do want it to be quite moist, and the vegetable broth adds a great taste to it. I proceed to add more guajillo sauce, the remaining amount that I need. Mix that all thoroughly, and for this guajillo sauce, the best advice I can give you is to cook it off as much as you can. It gives it a stronger and better flavor the more you cook it off. Okay, so next up, I'm adding 1 teaspoon of pink salt or salt to taste. I'll continue to mix that around thoroughly, give it a little taste test, and once it looks like this and it tastes delicious, you are done. Okay, so now moving on to making the tamal dough or the masa. Today I'm using the Maseca brand for tamales. You can find this at any local Mexican store. For the first masa, I'm using 4 cups of the Maseca for tamales. The reason why I say the first one is because I'm actually making 2 different ones. The first one will be for the jackfruit tamales, and the second one will be the plain one for the cheese with jalapeño tamales. Okay, next up, I'm adding 2 cups of warm water, followed by 1 cup of vegetable broth of your choice. After that, I'm going to be adding this Crisco vegetable oil shortening, or you can switch this out for any oil you may have at home. I will be adding 12 ounces of the vegetable shortening, which equals 1.5 cups. Depending on how oily you like your tamales, you can add more or less, but if you're looking for an oil-free recipe, this is not the one. Okay, so now the next ingredient is some baking powder, 2 teaspoons of that. Okay, so now for the ingredient that sets this masa apart from the other masa. I'm adding 1/2 cup of the homemade guajillo sauce. This adds a beautiful vibrant color as well as some delicious flavor, and honestly this really helps distinguish the meat tamales from the cheese tamales. Okay, so now it's time to get messy. You gotta really get in there and really work that dough. So you want to get everything mixed around evenly, and when you have reached a velvety and soft texture that doesn't stick to your hands but is still a little bit sticky and has some oil residue on your hands, you are ready and this is done. Also, give the masa a little taste test. I don't even know if that is healthy or whatever. My mom always tells me to just taste the dough. Add some salt to taste. I'm so sorry I didn't measure this part, but I think the salt is up to you. Okay, so like I said, when the dough doesn't stick to your hand, you are done. Okay, so now moving on to the plain masa. I'm adding 2 cups of maseca for tamales, 1 cup of warm water, 1/2 cup of vegetable broth of your choice, and then I'm adding 6 ounces of vegetable shortening or 3/4 cup. Alongside those ingredients, I'm adding 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm also going to be adding pink salt to taste. Obviously I can't taste it because I haven't mixed around the dough yet, but once I mix it around, I'm going to give it a little taste test to make sure I added enough salt. I don't know if you noticed, but I cut the measurements in half as opposed to the previous recipe. The reason why that is because I'm making less cheese tamales than I am jackfruit tamales. So repeat the same step as before, mix it around thoroughly, and once the masa doesn't stick to your hand, you are done. Okay, so here are some jalapeños that I cut off camera. I cut 3 of them for my rajas with cheese tamales. I'm using this fresh vegan mozzarella from Mayocos. I used this last year and it worked really well, but you can use any vegan mozzarella. So I'm going to be cutting this longwise, same way as my jalapeños, so that way it could be easy to assemble the tamales. Quick little story, the only reason why I'm using this Mayocos mozzarella is because it was on sale for half off at grocery outlet, but I honestly probably wouldn't be using it. It is a little on the pricier side, but totally worth it for this special occasion. Okay, so here are the corn husks. I will be using these. I soaked these overnight, or you could soak them in warm water 2 hours prior to you making the tamales. Time to actually assemble the tamales. I'm more of a visual learner, but I'll try to explain it to you guys. So what I do is scoop out a good amount of the masa, depending on how thick you want them. I like mine thick but not too thick. So I press it down with my hand, and as you can see right there, they're kind of thick but not too thick, depending on how thick you want them or how thin you want them. Then I scoop out a really good amount of the jackfruit because I like the filling to be like the main star. That's just who I am. I know some people like to be stingy with it, but I don't. So this is how I wrap my tamales. As you can see, I like to press it down, then open the flap back up, and then put the other flap back in, and then close it. Does that make sense? I know some people completely roll their tamales. So at the end, I like to pinch the tip because personally, I don't like when the filling is coming out, Maybe I'm just like a perfectionist that I don't like the jackfruit just falling everywhere. I don't know if you know what I mean. If you've had other tamales, I think you know what I mean. When you open the corn husk and like the masa is stuck to the tamal, personally, I don't like that. Okay, so this is how I do it. Again, here's me explaining it again. So flatten it out, then I pour in the filling, and then I flip over one part of the corn husk, as you can see right there. And then I pull it back and then flip that side, then put the other flap back over, and then make sure I pinch it in, and that's how I do it. And then for the end, pinch it back so that way no filling comes out, and that way the tamales, when you open them, they are seamless and perfect. Okay, so obviously it would be wrong if I didn't show you making the queso con rajas tamal. So same story. I scoop out some dough, flatten it out, and then I add 2 pieces of the vegan mozzarella, 2 to 3 pieces of the sliced jalapeño, and again the same story repeats with assembling the tamales. But please be super careful with the cheese ones because the cheese tends to explode in the cooking process. I don't know why, vegan cheese, non-vegan cheese, this always happens. It tends to spill out a little bit. So I'm a little bit more of a perfectionist with these. For the amount of jackfruit I used, I made 25 to 30 tamales. And for the amount of cheese I bought, which is just 1 container, I made 12 to 15 tamales. Okay, so for the cooking process, today I'm using my small steamer, which only fit around 12 tamales. But if you have a big one, feel free to cook all of them at once. I decided to lay them down today, but if you don't pinch the ends and the filling is like sticking out, make sure to stand them up because that cooks them better, and that way no filling falls out or explodes anywhere. As you can see, mine was a double steamer. These do take 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours to cook. Right there, they are 1 hour in, so I'm just giving you guys a little sneak peek. So here they are once I took them out of the steamer. Some of them did end up exploding. Like I said, the cheese ones always explode, but it's okay, they still taste delicious. I let them rest for around 30 minutes so they could firm up a little bit and not be so hot. So 30 minutes later, I'm gonna plate them and they are still really warm and really delicious. My wrapping method that I do for my tamales helps it not get the tamales completely stuck to the corn husk. As you can see right there, they come out almost perfect. Okay, the cheese ones low-key exploded, but it's okay. They still taste delicious and are amazing. And honestly, people might hate me for this, but I always prefer the cheese over the meat ones. I don't care what anyone says. And here is the final product. 2 cross sections for you guys. The jackfruit tamal, the queso con rajas tamal. These tamales go perfect paired with the tomatillo salsa. They are so delicious. Eat them with some rice and beans, on their own with some homemade hot chocolate. It's up to you. I promise your family will love them. And honestly, these are now a tradition in my vegan life. Prior to being vegan, I honestly never made tamales. My family, it was never like the biggest tradition to get together and make tamales. But from now on, I will be making these with my friends, with my immediate family, or honestly with my future children if I have any. I recommend making this recipe. It is so delicious. Change up the filling, but the jackfruit is amazing. Give that a try. Give the cheese ones a try. And happy holidays. Please enjoy this recipe and let me know what you think. Bye.